The human body is a miracle in motion. With it, we can do more things than any creature on Earth. But our bodies do a lot more than meets the eye. At any given moment, we're breathing and pumping, digesting and repairing, regulating and regenerating, and even making new life. Inside us is a maze of interdependent systems. Not one works alone. Blood gets oxygen from the lungs and fuel from the digestive system. In the bloodstream, the immune system is on constant patrol, hunting down germs and damaged cells. Our glands control dozens of activities: when we sleep and wake up, when we store food, and when we use it. The nervous system relays signals back and forth to the brain, the master of every move we make. At the heart of all this is the heart. We say the heart leaps, sinks, swells, aches, and breaks. What it really does is pump. The heart drives blood all over the body through a labyrinth of vessels. While the blood is getting pushed around, it drops off supplies for every cell. The deliveries include food and water, but the most critical cargo is oxygen. Blood soaks up oxygen in the lungs and enters the heart. The heart has 4 hollow chambers that work in pairs as 2 separate pumps. One pumps blood to the lungs to pick up oxygen, while the other pumps blood through the body to drop it off. The left side of the heart is in charge of getting blood to the body. The lower chamber, the left ventricle, is the heart's most powerful muscle. It propels blood out with enough pressure to travel through the entire body and back. This is no small feat. There are 60,000 miles of blood vessels, enough to go around the Earth 2.5 times. Blood leaves the heart through the body's largest artery, the aorta. It runs north, where the blood can take off toward the arms or brain, and then turn south to feed the middle and lower body. Arteries are more than just tubes. Built into their strong walls are muscles that control blood pressure and direct blood to where it's most needed. Large arteries branch into smaller tributaries called arterioles. They in turn lead to capillaries, where the blood drops off its vital supplies. The walls of these tiny vessels are thin enough for molecules to slip through. Like coffee grinds in a filter, the blood stays inside, but fuel and oxygen seep through to feed nearby cells. Blood has 3 main ingredients. Plasma is the liquid part of our blood. White cells are hunters. Their prey are germs and viruses. Red cells deliver food and oxygen. The harder we work, the more of these molecules we need. Blood's also a trash collector. When muscles burn oxygen and food, they create waste, carbon dioxide. Blood helps get rid of this gaseous garbage. After trading oxygen for carbon dioxide, blood heads back toward the lungs and heart. Capillaries drain into small veins, which join up to form large vessels. Veins often lie next to arteries running the opposite direction. Every second, the two vessels carry the same amount of blood, but the veins are wider to make up for the loss of pressure and the flow against gravity. Just 40 seconds after leaving the heart, the blood is back. This time it enters the right side. The right ventricle pumps it on a short trip through the pulmonary artery to the lungs. If spread out, the surface area of the lungs would cover a tennis court. Lungs are a miracle of evolution, designed to put the maximum amount of oxygen into the blood. Although they fill 90% of the chest, the lungs weigh only 2.5 pounds. Millions of branching air passages make them light and spongy. Lung design is essential for our survival, since oxygen makes up only 1/5 of the air we breathe. When we breathe in, muscles between the ribs pull up the rib cage. A dome-shaped muscle below the lungs, the diaphragm, moves down. Each breath is forced down through a labyrinth of tubes inside the lungs. The air passages split over and over again, ending in miniature airbags called alveoli. The thin walls of these air sacs allow a quick exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen. Once loaded with life-giving oxygen, the blood returns to the heart to take a trip around the body again. Muscles are where our bodies burn up the most fuel and oxygen. The harder we work, the more demand muscles place on the heart and lungs. Energy comes from a form of sugar, glycogen, that is stored in the liver. 1/4 of the chemical energy in the glycogen fuel is turned into useful power, while 3/4 is wasted as heat. When we burn fuel, blood carries the extra heat to the skin, where it's radiated. The human body has 656 muscles, each one made up of millions of tiny cells as thin as a hair and up to 2 inches long. Muscles are controlled by the nervous system, which sends electrical signals down the spinal cord and on through individual nerves. The nerve sends an electric shock to the cell's surface, and that makes tiny fibers inside the cell contract. When they do, the muscle shortens. A fraction of the cells in each muscle are used for light work. To increase the pull, the nervous system recruits more cells and fires more often. But muscles alone can't handle body movement. We'd be like jellyfish without bones to support us. The human skeleton has 206 separate bones, from 2 feet long to only a fraction of an inch. Each bone has been perfectly designed by evolution for a different purpose. The arms are supported by a bony framework across the shoulders, only loosely connected to the rest of the skeleton. Because our shoulder blades aren't attached to the rib cage, our arms have an enormous range of movement. The human hand is an amazing piece of bioengineering. The thumb facing the fingertips gives us a strong, sensitive grip. The fragile finger bones and joints are built for delicate work. Naturally, the bones with the most weight to support are the largest ones. These are the femurs, or thigh bones. Movable bones don't actually touch, but have a wear-resistant bearing between them, a joint. The knee is the most complex joint in the human body. The knee cap allows muscles to pull strongly around the joint when it bends. Without well-oiled joints, we would move as stiffly as robots. Joints and bones work together to amplify the motion of our muscles. For this flex, the biceps contract just 1 inch. The pivot point at the elbow magnifies the movement of the muscle in the upper arm. Bone is made of cells in a matrix of protein fibers called collagen, and the minerals calcium and phosphate. Without collagen, bone would be as brittle as glass. Without minerals, it would be as pliable as a rubber toy. This structure makes bone both light and strong. If the skeleton was built with steel of an equivalent strength, it would weigh about 5 times as much. Bones not only give us strength and structure, they also serve as armor. The rib cage guards the vulnerable organs in our upper body. The backbone protects our spinal cord. And the skull, our precious brain. One of our best defenses against the outside world is our largest organ, the skin. It makes up almost 10 pounds of our body weight. It's paper thin, but surprisingly tough. This waterproof coat is our first line of defense against harmful attack. The epidermis is the outermost layer of skin. On the surface, dead cells overlap like roof tiles to keep water and chemicals out and body moisture in. Beneath the surface, living skin cells divide and grow. New cells push their way to the surface where they harden and die and flake off. We shed 10 billion skin cells a day, more skin than a snake sheds. The second layer of skin is the dermis, built from layers of tough, flexible fibers, collagen and elastin. Soft and supple, these layers act as shock absorbers. The dermis contains a jungle of plumbing and electronics. In 1 square inch of your hand, there are 30 hairs, 9 feet of blood vessels, 134 yards of nerves, 9,000 nerve endings, and 700 pain, heat, and pressure sensors. When heat sensors feel cold, tiny muscles pull hairs upright to trap a warming layer of air next to the skin. When the sensors are warm, sweat glands go into action. Our bodies can perspire as much as a quart an hour. As sweat reaches the surface of the skin, it evaporates to keep us cool. Feel even the slightest touch, and a message goes to the brain in less than 1/100th of a second. Our touch sensors are closest together on the fingertips. They can distinguish stimuli only 1/10 of an inch apart. Touch, pain, heat, all these sensors work together with the nervous system to keep us out of danger. When we do get hurt, our second line of defense is instantly triggered, the immune system. Part of the immune defense is a deadly cocktail of cells that work together to rid the body of harmful invading organisms. In the bloodstream, cells called platelets are the first to respond to a cut. Without them, we'd bleed to death from the tiniest scratch. Platelets gather and stick together to make a soft clot over the hole. The clot stops blood from getting out and germs from getting in. Cells in the dermis erupt, spitting out chemicals that dilate blood vessels surrounding the cut, making them leaky. White blood cells can then escape from the bloodstream into the tissue. They literally consume dirt, debris, and infection. Of course, a cut isn't the only way infection can get under our skin. The most common way to get sick is by human contact. It's the human need to socialize that makes us most vulnerable to our only remaining predator, germs. These stick-shaped bacteria are quickly destroyed by killer white blood cells. Most germs are swiftly cut down by the immune system. Killer cells are so effective that if they were to turn their vicious attack against us, we'd never survive. But as brutal as the immune system is, it can't win every battle. We catch at least 2 colds a year, and it's easy to see how. Most colds are passed on by touch. We carry germs on our skin and transfer them to others along with deposits of dead skin cells. In a crowded bar, it's hard not to inhale other people's breath, complete with germs and other pollutants. It's even worse when we sneeze. Air blasts out as fast as 100 miles an hour and as far as 13 feet. A sneeze is actually an immune response. Sneezing, coughing, vomiting, scratching, and crying all serve to rid the body of foreign invaders. From these outer defenses down to our killer cocktail of white blood cells, the immune system sees to it that we don't perish from exposure to all the invisible enemies that surround us. It's our brain that sets us apart from other animals, the only object conscious of itself. The brain is 3 pounds of soft tissue, containing 14 billion nerve cells called neurons. When we think, minute electrical signals flash between these nerves, creating a network of trillions of connections. The spinal cord is our body's information superhighway. Nerve fibers carry electrical signals to and from the brain as fast as 800 miles an hour. All parts of the brain are connected by bundles of nerve fibers, crisscrossing the interior like telephone lines. Each time we repeat an action or a word, the connection we're using becomes stronger. So, as we learn, we literally rewire our brains. The rewiring takes place on the surface of the brain, in a layer just 1/8 of an inch thick, the cortex. The nerve cells in the cortex do the thinking that's uniquely human. The cortex forms two distinct hemispheres. The left hemisphere thinks in words, while the right thinks in images and feelings. To keep it all straight, nerves exchange information through a dense band at the base of the brain. For muscle control, the lines of command cross over. Each hemisphere handles one side of the body, from feet and legs to hands and eyes. The left side of the body is connected to the brain's right hemisphere, and sensations from the right side of the body end up in the left. Each part of the cortex is responsible for a different part of the body. Speech, emotion, and skilled movements are generated in the frontal lobe. The motor cortex handles body movement. The part of the brain that senses touch is here. Because different areas of the skin are more sensitive than others, this is what the body looks like to the brain. There are far more nerves in the hands alone than in the entire back. Tongue, lips, and fingers stand out as the most sensitive skin regions. Our dominant sense is sight. Seeing doesn't happen in the eyes, it happens in the cortex. It's estimated that vision takes up more than 1/3 of our total sensory awareness. In computer terms, the combined work of the eyes and brain alone would take at least 10 billion calculations per second. Each eye is a ball, an inch across that weighs 1/4 of an ounce. It's turned and rotated by 6 muscles. Light enters the eye through the cornea with a curved surface that provides most of the eye's focusing power. Behind the cornea is the most distinctive feature of any eye, the iris. Its involuntary muscles control how much light is let in by the pupil. The iris is named after the goddess of the rainbow. Colors and details vary from person to person. It's a mark of identity. No two people have the same pattern of lines and flecks. Behind the iris is the lens. Seen from inside the eye, looking out, it hangs by fibers like the spokes of a wheel. The lens is surrounded by a ring of muscle that can squeeze and alter its shape. It fine-tunes focus by compensating for distance. The lens must become more curved to clearly focus on nearby objects. Just as a glass of liquid bends light, when we look at an object, the light bends at the front of the eye to a focus on the retina. The retina receives the image upside down. It's up to the brain to turn it right side up. The retina is a thin layer of cells lining the back of the eyeball. It's actually part of the nervous system, connected to the brain by the optic nerve. The specialized cells of the retina soak up light and turn what we see into a stream of electrical signals. There are two types of light receptors. Most are long, thin rod cells, which see well in dim light, but only in black and white. Cones are stubby, pointed cells that detect color, but work best in bright light. The eye jumps from place to place, helping to keep the cells from getting burnt out. Our eyes never fix for long on a single point. Panning at a constant speed across a scene is just about impossible for the human eye. Instead, it must fix on and analyze a series of points along the line. But eyes can track smoothly when following a moving object. Each eye sees a slightly different image, although the visual field of one eye does partly overlap the other. Indeed, it's this area of binocular vision that gives us depth perception. Our eyes send two images to the brain, where they're combined to give us the illusion that we see in 3D. Hearing is another sense that uses a lot of brain power. Sound is analyzed in the temporal lobe, the part of the cortex nearest the ears. Our ears can distinguish millions of different sounds. We can recognize friends by very small differences in their voices. We can pick out what they're saying amid a swarm of distractions, and even pinpoint their position by sound alone. Our built-in compass depends on having two ears. A voice from the left reaches the left ear before the right. Even though the delay is only a few millionths of a second, it helps us to locate where the sound is coming from. No two ears are alike. Not even two on the same head. They help to refine our direction-finding sense. As sounds bombard the outer ear from different angles, the ridges and folds amplify some frequencies and soften others. They produce subtle changes in sound that we detect without thinking about them. Sound waves are channeled from the outer ear down the inch-long ear canal. At the far end, the sound waves pound on the ear drum. This membrane is stretched tightly across the ear canal. From the eardrum, sound travels through the middle ear. Vibrations are passed on by our smallest bones, the hammer, anvil, and stirrup. This chain reaction magnifies the pressure of sound waves more than 20 times. The stirrup bone taps on the oval window, a thin membrane leading to the fluid-filled cavities of the inner ear. The sound resonates through salty fluid that fills the hollow shell of the cochlea. The pea-sized cochlea contains our body's built-in microphone, the corti. This is where physical vibrations are turned into electrical nerve signals. The corti has more than 20,000 cells, crowned with up to 100 hairs each. When sound waves shake and rattle these hairs, they stamp a matching imprint on the membrane above. The cells of the corti are so sensitive that when we hear the faintest sounds, the hairs are moving less than the diameter of an atom.
want you to try and
The
think.
inner ear has another purpose, even more important than hearing. We can live without sound, but not without balance. The three loops in this exotic sculpture are fluid-filled tubes that tell the brain how the head is moving. When the head rotates, the fluid in these semicircular canals rushes in the opposite direction. Neatly set at right angles, the three loops can accurately track the head no matter which way it moves. To know which end is up, the ear has a second balance mechanism that works like a carpenter's level. In the center of the inner ear, next to the cochlea, is a cavity filled with fluid and a slippery mat of tiny crystals. When the head tilts, the mat slides toward the lowest point. The changing load reveals which way gravity is pulling. Information from the inner ears provides only part of the picture. Our brains use information from all over the body to maintain balance. Touch and pressure sensors on the feet point out the way the body is leaning, and nerves in muscles and joints tell the brain about the positions and angles of the arms, legs, torso, and neck. We use sight to recognize familiar vertical and horizontal lines. Balance is just one example of how the brain, in partnership with the eyes and ears, helps us paint a picture of the world around us. Other senses fill in the fine details to complete that picture. The air we breathe is filled with molecules carrying aroma. The nose figures out what shape these molecules are, and that's how we smell. Different shapes are perceived as different scents. Most of the sniff of air ends up in the lungs, but 5% of it goes to the top of the nose. The vapor flows through a jungle of nasal passages until it hits the roof, a region packed with nerve endings. Smell molecules dissolve in mucus and are trapped by hairy receptors. The olfactory nerves that pick up smell are virtually an extension of the brain. When a smell cell grabs a molecule, it shoots an electronic signal through a thin layer of bone straight into the brain. No other sense is so immediate. And, unique among brain cells, the olfactory nerves renew themselves. You get a whole new nose every 3 to 4 weeks. Our nose has a lot to do with another sense: taste. 90% of what we think is taste is actually smell. The tongue concentrates on analyzing texture and temperature. Even though we have thousands of taste buds, our tongues only detect 4 basic flavors: bitter, sour, salty, and sweet. The nose is responsible for picking up the subtleties of taste. Food provides energy for muscles and nutrients for healthy cell production. The mouth has 32 teeth designed to mill, cut, and tear. The teeth are helped by 3 pairs of salivary glands. Saliva contains enzymes, chemicals that break food down into molecules the body can absorb. The mouthful of food, or bolus, is steered into the esophagus, the muscular tube leading to the stomach. Waves of contractions called peristalsis are the start of a 30-foot conveyor belt that carries food and drink through the process of digestion. Within 3 seconds, the bolus is in the stomach, the body's food processor. This muscular bag pulverizes what we eat. Strong acid pours in, mounting a second wave of attack. Contractions in the stomach churn and squeeze and blend the food into a thick paste called chyme. Peristalsis forces the chyme out of the stomach into the small intestine, where enzymes from the pancreas and bile from the gallbladder help to break up globules of fat and vitamins. Tiny projections called villi increase the surface area for taking in nutrients by about 600 times. Without this advantage, the small intestine would have to be more than 2 miles long. After traveling 20 feet through the small intestine, chyme enters the large intestine, where there are millions of bacteria. They live on the remains of our digested food and are quite harmless in the digestive tract. Bacteria, not the remains of food, make up most of our solid waste. We'd quickly dry out if we didn't have the water filtering cells of the large intestine. In its lining, most of the water in chyme is recycled. Capillaries carry the reclaimed water back into circulation. Every day, our kidneys filter 40 gallons of water, and 99% of it is recirculated. The remaining liquid is combined with waste to make urine. Urine leaves the kidneys through 12-inch tubes called ureters and collects in the bladder. The liver is a virtual chemistry lab. Although it isn't considered part of the intestinal tract, it's crucial to digestion and metabolism. When nutrients are absorbed by the small intestine, they end up in the liver. The liver completes the digestive cycle by making food into body fuel. Metabolism is one of many body functions that is handled by a special group of glands that make up the endocrine system. These glands produce hormones, the chemicals that control body rhythms. We'd go haywire without hormones. They maintain the delicate chemical balance the body needs to function. The word hormone comes from a Greek word meaning to excite. Hormones are chemical messengers that stimulate the other organs. Deep inside the brain, the hypothalamus is the link between hormones and the nervous system. It controls the pituitary gland, which in turn controls the hormone production of all the major endocrine glands. That's why the pea-sized pituitary is often called the master gland. Everyone has a daily rhythm, a biological clock that controls waking, eating, and sleeping. At night, the pineal gland releases the hormone melatonin to make us sleepy. The production of this hormone stops each morning as soon as our eyes detect daylight. The pineal gland keeps the body clock ticking to the right time. Located on the kidneys, the adrenal glands are controlled by the pituitary. They produce cortisol in the early hours of the morning and adrenaline as the day wears on. These hormones keep mind and body awake and alert. Metabolism is controlled by the thyroid gland. It makes thyroxine, which regulates cell growth. Each day, the average adult body has to renew about half a pound of tissue and muscle. Thyroxine sets the rate we burn up the body's reserves of fat and how effectively we use the food we eat. Insulin and glucagon keep the level of sugar in our blood balanced. These two hormones are made by the pancreas, which sends instructions to the liver, the storehouse of the body's spare sugar. Insulin tells the liver to remove sugar from the bloodstream and store it for later use. Glucagon prompts the liver to pump sugar back into the blood. When we get tired at the end of the day, it's because our adrenaline level drops. Soon after we fall asleep, our body goes into its repair phase. The pituitary boosts production of growth hormone, which instructs cells to repair the wear and tear of the day. The reproductive glands produce estrogen and testosterone, which control the development of breasts, body hair, and sex glands during puberty. That's when women begin to menstruate, when, once a month, an egg is released from an ovary. In men, puberty triggers the production of sperm. The testes are filled with hundreds of yards of tubes where sperm originate. Packed around the walls are the germ cells which will develop into sperm. The massive tails are mature sperm waiting to be called into action. The sperm is a highly efficient machine for delivering its packet of genes to the target. The torpedo head has a cap of chemicals that will bore into the female egg. Inside is a dense mass of DNA. Unwind the DNA, and in its double helix is the genetic code. It's packaged into bundles, chromosomes, that are carried by both sperm and egg. Once a month, the pituitary gland releases a hormone that stimulates a female egg. Next to the uterus is an ovary, where eggs wait for the hormone signal to trigger one to escape into the fallopian tube. The stage is set for the creation of a new human being. During intercourse, sperm are propelled into the prostate gland and fortified by special secretions. At ejaculation, they perform a spectacular feat, swimming the equivalent of 5 miles. Splashed against the woman's cervix is a flood of 400 million sperm, most of which fall by the wayside. This is where most sperm die. This sperm's eye view of the vagina reveals the microscopic nooks and crannies that trap sperm. The vagina also contains acid that protects it from bacteria. Germs won't flourish here, and neither will sperm. 100 million are killed instantly. The fallopian tubes are lined with microscopic hairs which sweep the egg onwards. Unlike the wiggling sperm, it can't move on its own. The egg has less than 48 hours to meet up with the sperm. Only during this time can a woman become pregnant. For the surviving sperm, the next obstacle on this course is the cervix, the narrow door to the womb. It can be blocked by a plug of mucus. This sticky barrier protects the woman by preventing harmful bacteria from invading the vulnerable womb. Under a microscope, the mucus appears impassable. But for 2 days every month, the structure changes to a wider mesh, and the strongest sperm can force their way through. The mucus cleans off any bacteria they may carry. Less than 1% of the sperm reach the final hurdle, the entrance to the fallopian tubes. Only one tube carries the egg, so half go the wrong way. Out of the 400 million that began the trip, only 100 sperm reached the egg. Once there, they frantically try to bore their way in through the outer shell. In this race, winner takes all. Only one sperm can penetrate the egg. The winner binds to the egg's surface. An explosive charge of enzymes in its head drills through the shell. A wave of color marks the moment, a chemical signal sweeping across the egg. With lightning speed, the shell of the egg hardens to prevent other sperm from entering. Within hours of fertilization, the two sets of chromosomes from egg and sperm reach out to each other and combine. This signals the egg to begin dividing. Chromosomes pull apart and the egg splits into two cells. After a few hours, each splits again. During the week it takes to travel down the fallopian tube, these cells continue to divide and multiply. The process begins slowly and then speeds up. In order for pregnancy to occur, the fertilized egg must implant in the uterus. The odds are 50-50 that the cell could be lost with the woman's next menstrual period. But if by day 7 the embryo is burrowing into its mother's womb, a new life begins. From the simple beginning of division and multiplication, identical cells begin to change. Genes carry messages that instruct cells to differentiate. By the 5th week of pregnancy, the fertilized egg has become an embryo and is visible to the human eye. The embryo has a head and trunk and the beginnings of a brain. There's a digestive system, kidneys, and a liver, and buds which will become arms and legs. This small miracle is the size of a coffee bean. By the 8th week, all the main internal organs are there, though they have yet to fully develop. The limb buds start to look like tiny arms and legs. The embryo may begin to kick, but the mother can't feel it. It's still smaller than her little toe. After another month has passed, the embryo has become a fetus, and it's kicking, curling toes, clenching fists, frowning, and making other facial expressions. The mother still can't feel it. The fetus is only about 2.5 inches long. By the 13th week, the baby is completely formed. By week 32, the fetus lacks only a good layer of insulating fat, and lung tissue has not completely matured. During the final 8 weeks, the baby's appearance changes little, but the cells in the brain and nervous system continue to knit together, and the baby becomes more alert. Our bodies are almost complete at birth, with looks and most personality traits already locked in. In 9 short months, a miraculous transformation has taken place. A single human cell has become the myriad of systems that is the human body.